Welcome to the Marshfield Zoning Board of Appeals, Tuesday, July 9th, 2024 meeting. This is a hybrid meeting, so if you're dialing in on a phone, please use *6 to mute and unmute yourself. We're being taped by MCTV, just so everyone knows. And we're going to start with closed meeting 23102, Maitland LLC, CO Sealant Corporation. And just so the audience knows, we're in a closed discussion here, so we can't hear from the audience at all. All right. So
Where did we leave off, Brian?
I think we're going to discuss the hydrogeological report to start. Andrew, can you pull up the environmental partners report? And Nancy, do you know what you put that the diagram underneath?
It will be, if Andrew does it by most recently filed or most recently saved, it will be on there. It was whatever it was titled.
And the environmental, do we have both reports or? All right. I think the one I want is the May 20. Can you find that, Andrew?
I'm working on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It should say May 20. Right?
This one here, Brian?
The cover page has a picture of right above the site. Oh, there we, yeah, that's it right there. May 20, yes, please, that's it. All right, so I just want to make a statement that none of us on this board would approve a project that would adversely impact our drinking water wells. Some of us grew up here and have families in Marshfield. All of us live here. Zoning Board of Appeals is obligated under the law and regulations to approve, deny, or approve with conditions a permit called a comprehensive permit. And we've had to assist this board in evaluating the proposed project of the Zoning Board of Appeals, utilize a team of very experienced, independent civil engineer consultants whose only charge was to evaluate impacts of the proposed projects from traffic, stormwater, wastewater, site design, and several other areas. Zoning Board of Appeals has engaged the town's long-term water scientist, who is an expert in water quality and authorized the very strict local nitrogen standards for the water quality in the Water Resource Protection District. So, Andrew, I'd like to start on the model page, which I think is, Ed, can you help me there? What page is the model on? The one I'm looking for.
Bring it up.
Yeah, he's up there. Do you know what page it is?
Yep. Let me just get to it. It starts on sheet 17.
Okay. So I think we have to look at this analysis from Environmental Partners Group, just to see what they've done. So we have the studies that go all the way back to 1989 on the way that the water moves here and the different water reports. Can you go to the next slide, Andrew? So that in the purple is the site model, and the pink is outlined as the area we have in question. And if we could go to the next slide. That just goes through the different scenarios. nitrate. All right, the next slide after that, Andrew. So this is when we get into the, how they made this model. And the model, the way it was done, they only studied, originally when this was brought up, I was told that they were going to examine the whole aquifer, 100% of who contributes to what there. But this model doesn't, it only examines the 4%, which is this project. But Ed, could I ask you to explain the conditions that this model assumes and the parameters of it? I mean, I'm not wrong to say this. One of the things that I had a problem with is this considers a 5-year drought conditions to get to the point that it gets to. Is that correct?
So, yes, so they created the modeling conditions in a very, very conservative worst case that is perhaps to some unreasonable, but let me just explain. So the bullets here are what they used to help create the conditions that the model was going to produce results. So instead of using the groundwater flow direction, the information that they had, they assumed that the groundwater flow direction is directly towards the Ferry Street well, the nearest Ferry Street well, about 2,100 feet away. They assumed a relatively high groundwater flow, groundwater velocity, very porous sandy soil, and then there's a porous sandy soil. But groundwater velocity is based on a number of factors, not just the porosity of the soil. But they assumed a high migration of the water, and when I say velocity, I would have to read the report in full, but groundwater in this region is somewhere between 1 to 3 feet per day. So that doesn't sound like it's going very fast to most people, but in groundwater parlance, it is pretty fast. They assume no degradation and no retardation, no change in the concentration, essentially, from the source at the proposed project locus to the Ferry Street well, so no change in the concentration. And then they assume no nitrate that would be currently present in the groundwater as well. That is not being transported there and not going to the well, or not at the well. And they did not take into account the mixing of clean water at the wellhead, because at the wellhead it's taking water from 360 degrees, not just from the direction of flow from the site that the model was set up to show. It's also right at the wellhead for a zone of influence around the well, depending on the pumping rate, it could be as much as 100 feet. You're grabbing clean water, or at least non-PFAS plume water, as this red plume is shown, around the surrounding area around the well. So they ran the model and they assumed no recharge, and they assumed no, they assumed no mixing, and with that in effect, with no recharge, then the flow lines focused towards the well, and showed that it would get there within 5 years. So that the PFAS from the site that they show at the source of the location at our project site that you're reviewing would get to the wells within 5 years. That's how they modeled it. Ed Eichner and Pat Brennan, I'll rely on you to embellish a little bit more, perhaps, on your opinion of the way this was set up, or your observation of how this was set up. Did I miss anything that's important for the board to hear?
Ed, I don't think you missed anything. That's pretty accurate characterization.
So in order to get to this model, all the historical data shows that the water from this area travels east, meaning it goes down to the river or the ocean. It doesn't go to the well directly. And in order to create the water to go northerly, it would be, what would you use for a word that this is under a Zone 2 pumping condition, meaning that we're sucking the water from all the way around based on a 180-day drought, and then that number would be held for continuous for the next 5 years. Is that correct?
So as I understand it, yes. When DEP looks at establishing a Zone 2, they also look at some conservative assumptions, and they assume that there's no rainfall for 6 months, that the pump, that the influence of the pump is happening with no recharge of rainfall for 6 months. And at that 6-month condition, they look at the flow lines and the capture zone to that well. So they look, basically it makes the capture zone larger than if there was recharge. And so they're looking at, this is the area of the Zone 2 to the public drinking water supply, that special rules should be in effect for nitrogen and other contaminants, Zone 1 and Zone 2, for a public drinking water supply well. The Environmental Partners Group, as I understood it, took that a whole nother level. They assumed 5 years of no recharge. So, and it is obviously unreasonable to assume that, but they gave the parameters of the model, they gave that parameter to the model to see what would happen. And that's when they determined that it looks like that a concentration of PFAS, if it starts at the site of the proposed project at 18 nanograms per liter, if it starts there at that concentration, it will get to the site in 5 years at or above the 4 nanogram, the new EPA standard for PFOS and PFOA. Now, there are other compounds of PFAS, polyfluoroalkyl substances. PFAS is the general term of all the other PFAS compounds, and some of the EPA limits are 10 nanograms, not 4, but for the two most common, it's 4. And so they looked at 4 for those, assuming that would get there eventually someday. They did not take into account, I think we've talked about this, they did not take into account any other source of contaminants in the watershed. So the existing, the assumption is that PFAS would come from the wastewater, and that we would obviously expect them to think about and be concerned about other sources of wastewater in the watershed, but they did not consider nor model any of those and did not provide any results for that.
Well, I'll say that's the question that that I struggled with, was how could this, being 4% of this aquifer, get there in, they did use the term may, in 2 to 5 years. But, I'm just going to make a statement that I would like to also acknowledge the help our DPW gave us. Marshfield DPW has always done their best to protect our water systems and our town. I've worked in all the surrounding towns, and Marshfield is lucky to have the staff and employees we do on the DPW, past and present. They are head and shoulders above all the surrounding towns. And for me, the location of this well, if the water is traveling east from this area that's more dense, so theoretically it doesn't, some of it makes it to the well, but it seems like where those wells were located, Carolina Hill feeds that well, and that is there's virtually no population up there, and that is one of the reasons we believe that the wells have not been contaminated by, or have very small numbers in them. Is that an accurate statement, or?
It's my understanding that and I don't have any of the data to spout that, but I know that there has been some PFAS compounds detected at some of the water supply wells in town, but at a very, very low concentration. Instead of 4 nanograms, it's 0.0 something nanograms, so it's very, very small. I don't know if that includes, I'm not clear whether the Ferry Street and Church Street wells are the ones that were detected, but it's certainly not above the drinking water standard that EPA is now established. So, yes, they're obviously they're struggling with how to deal with this. The public water supply, the DPW, like every other community is, and trying to do some thinking about what if scenarios. This model is one of those what if scenarios. It just took it to a very, very extraordinary, conditions of modeling what could happen if no rainfall happened for 5 years.
Ed, in your professional experience, has Marshfield ever gone in its entire history 6 months without recorded rain? Going back to the dinosaurs, if you were around.
I'm sure we've had dry months. I don't know if we've had
6 consecutive months with 0 rain.
I believe I had a conversation with Ed Eichner, and Ed did some research on this, and I believe he looked at every month for the last several years, and there was no month without some rainfall in the month. Ed, could you explain that for us?
Sure. So as part of another project that I was working on, I looked at 25 years worth of precipitation. And it was on the Cape. It wasn't in Marshfield, but 25 years worth of monthly precipitation, and there were none of those months in 25 years that had no precipitation. All of them had some precipitation. So that's close to 300 months worth of data, and there were no months that didn't have precipitation. Certainly none that didn't have precipitation for 6 months. So it gets back to, DEP made very conservative assumptions for the Zone 2s. So that's already built into that. This is the modeling that was done in this case is a step beyond even what DEP considers conservative.
So Ed's, collectively, because the assumptions are so absurd, does that call into question the integrity of the rest of the report? I mean, to me, it looks like they reached their conclusion before they started their evaluation. And then they had to back in with these fantastic scenarios, changing the flow of water, no rain for 6 months, all these absurd assumptions to get to their crazy result. I mean, it looks like junk to me.
I will say, typically when you're putting together a model, you start with existing conditions. You populate the model with observed water levels, observed hydrogeology, and then you see if you can match that within the model. There's a series of assumptions that have been made in this modeling exercise that don't really sort of match what's actually been observed or measured, including what's actually, how much PFAS is at the wells already.
It does not reflect reality. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. I would say that's a fair statement, yes.
Thank you.
So again, we have these scenarios. Andrew, what was that under the diagram that I'm looking for?
It's part of the second or third file saved today.
Andrew, Nancy said it's the second or third file that was saved today. If you could go to that drawing. Okay, that's it, yep. All right, so thank you. So the yellow, the highlight bright yellow is the project. The green represents 100 homes that are closer to the well than the proposed project. And then the rest of that orangey color is the entire what sits above that current aquifer for homes. And we do have
Zone 2.
Zone 2. So we do have to the right there, yep, that is Spyglass, which almost has double the amount of bedrooms in it that this project is proposing. So is it a fair assumption to say that if they even ran the green area, spyglass, or any of the above, the 96% remaining there under this model, would that be catastrophic? Meaning, how much of this would make it to that well? Because under the same model and conditions, it would take a direct path to the well. Under 6 months of drought and then a continued 5 years of on and off drought, wouldn't that be a lot worse than what we're looking at?
Well, I'll just try to attempt to answer that, Brian. First of all, the green circle represents and that's the distance away from our the project location, the project you're evaluating. That's the green, the same distance away from the well as the project the boundary of the project you're evaluating. And inside that well are at least 100 homes. When you multiply that times 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms, it's 3 or 4 or even 5, at least 300 bedrooms. Remember, the project you're evaluating is 88 bedrooms. Spyglass to the right is 168 bedrooms. And I just want to call into context for the board's understanding. Inside the watershed, with the help of the town planner and Pat Brennan, we determined that there's over 500 units, 500 homes and units, and we determined based on just looking at approximate, I just took a conservative number, said 3.5 bedrooms per unit per home. Obviously, there's plenty of houses that are more than that. It was approximately, with these 88, it was 2,100 homes. So the 88, I can look the actual numbers up, the 88 homes represented 4% of the homes in the watershed. So 4% of the wastewater in the watershed. If wastewater is the alleged source, I'm not saying it can be, certainly, I'm saying it can be, I'm not saying it's not, of the PFAS, then the other wastewater sources that already exist there are also potential sources of PFAS. And I know that the DPW already knows this and are already thinking about this, because I know that they're doing some more planning for this, that because of that condition, they're already thinking about ways to protect that wellhead, to consider future treatment systems on the wellhead to guard against PFAS. Again, we're not, the town of Marshfield is not the only community dealing with this. So it should be, if the model in the conditions that they presented, the modeling boundary conditions they created to show that transport of PFAS from the project site to the well, if they did the same thing at just spyglass, for instance, they would perhaps have a different travel time but the same result. So maybe it would be a little bit longer, but the same result. The other ones within 100 feet, excuse me, the other 100 units within that green circle, those should get there quicker. Now, obviously, it's more dispersed, perhaps, in a larger area, and it's a different concentration, it's a different volume, so it's not, an apartment building that's collecting flow from several bedrooms. It's just a house, but a number of houses on a street, so it's spread out a little bit more, but it still is much closer there, as you can see, anybody can see, to the center of that radius. There's an awful lot of structures, of homes, that are closer to that well. So, we would expect that PFAS, if it's in the wastewater, would show up at the well as a result of those other sources that are reported in the literature today. Some of the literature today, that wastewater from the personal care products, from some of the things we soaps and other surfactants that we use sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes would contain PFAS. So it's in the wastewater, so it's a potential source of PFAS compounds. you would think that would show up at the well, and it's not doing that in any appreciable manner compared to what the model predicted. So it's something to be concerned about in the future. It's something for the DPW and the water supply to be concerned about and to be prepared for for every public water supply well you have in town. But I don't see how. I guess I'll just say I'm not 100% convinced that this project the board is evaluating is a significant source of PFAS any more than the other sources that are within the watershed. And I'll say it again, the project complies with current local, state, and federal regulations.
And how long have we really been testing for PFAS? Is this relatively new science, if you will?
I want to
10 years?
I want to say 5 years,
So it's fair to say that this is,
2019-ish.
so this is,
It really became contaminant concern, and emerging contaminant concern is what it was called back 2017, 18, 19. And then the regulators, meaning DEP and the US EPA, didn't have a drinking water standard for it. So they had they had an advisory concentration, health advisory they call it. And then DEP realized that they needed to, they felt like they needed to provide better protection for public health. And just so you know, that the concentration, allowed concentration of the health advisory concentration, I believe, was 70 parts per trillion back then. And so they dropped it to 20. And they picked 6 PFAS compounds that couldn't add up to 20. So it's the PFAS 6. It's not just one of them, it's 6 of them. Virtually all of them are the same as the ones that EPA looked at as well. So PFAS 6 can't exceed 20 parts per trillion. And none of the, it's not my understanding, none of the wells in town do. None of the wells in town exceed 4 parts per trillion as well. And they'll be looking at that more carefully going forward. I certainly think it's a good idea for the board to recommend a condition, when the board can have a condition and decision about the use of PFAS and the awareness of PFAS. I think that the applicant's attorney had provided a letter to the board regarding that. Absolutely important. We're all learning more about it now. There's a lot of things we don't know, but I think it's certainly an item to be concerned about going forward.
So,
go ahead, I'm sorry, that's one of the things that concerns me is the fact that 5 or 10 years ago, this really wasn't an issue, and now it's becoming an issue. As you said, it's constantly evolving and changing. And what is our fail-safe with this? I do know if this system that they're planning on putting in, or they desire to put in, has a 3-year warranty, and we were talking about increasing that, getting a 20-year plan with them with monthly testing and so forth with that, so we could pick up if there was being a problem with the water contaminants. But one of my concerns is, what are we going to have for a fail-safe if we do run into that type of situation? I realize they would be ordered to replace the system in order to hook into a sewage system, but what if the money is not available for that? What do we have for a financial fail-safe? That's one of my concerns.
Well, I think to me is, you got to look at this and say, I think hopefully the DPW, I know they're under time constraints, but they can finish this study, because originally they said they were going to study the whole aquifer. So they would put the rest of that aquifer under the model that was created for them. And then we can see what happens. I mean, I think that's important for the people that live in this town to know. Because is it under that model, what they're showing, is this little 4%, what is the rest of that going to do under that model? I mean, I would think that would lead to a failure of all those wells. And the reason I believe the wells are clean is because that water travels easterly. If you see on that direct line, they're showing it going in a direct line from this
Yep.
to the well. But that would mean that everything else is going in a direct line under these conditions.
Under
So,
this.
I mean, you have to, hopefully they can finish this report so we can get some information and closure on this to understand what would happen if we had a 180-day drought, and then after that, we had 5 years of drought. What would happen with the rest of that? Because I think people are really scared that live here, and when you start to break down that model, to me, it's not really, I don't remember a time that we had 5 years on and off drought. I don't even remember more than a month, so. But you have to look at what they did and then look at the rest of it to say what would happen now. Like, it's not a fair analysis, and I was told in the beginning that this whole aquifer would be studied under this model. And I understand they ran out of time, but I hope they're gonna finish the rest of the study.
So I have a question, Ed. If there's 100 homes closer to the well with 400 bedrooms with no nitrate removal and no PFAS removal, wouldn't the existing wastewater pollute the well to at least a greater amount that the town would be required to have install a treatment for PFAS?
Yes, it would definitely make sense that, especially some of the sources that are very close, reasonably close, 500 to 600 feet away, at some point, they'll eventually have, they'll have some contaminants run into the well that need to be dealt with, because they are not advanced treatment septic systems, they're conventional Title V septic systems. Now, the advanced treatment septic system that the applicant is proposing is not designed to treat PFAS. I don't believe anybody has done any analysis on how well that it actually does treat for PFAS, but I bet there's going to be a lot of people doing some analysis of that going forward. But if the assumption is that wastewater is the source of PFAS in groundwater, is the predominant potential source of PFAS in groundwater, and therefore the threat to public drinking water supplies, then you've got the same problem with all those other folks that live in the watershed. So, yeah, and again, I said I recommended, and I think I know that the DPW and the Board of Public Works is already planning for, planning how to have a treatment system reaction time, basically for a treatment system that at some point in the near future, or maybe it's in the far future, hopefully, that they may need.
So,
Sorry. The comment in here, Andrew, could you go back to the study? I mean, the presentation that we had. So can you go up to a page, go forward from there? Keep going. Right there. So down the bottom there, it says, which I've heard a lot of people saying out there that incorrectly, they're not using the term may, but relatively low concentrations of PFAS is discharged water may result in PFAS compounds reaching the Ferry Street and Church Street wells at concentrations exceeding the combined PFOA and PFOS drinking water standard of 4 nanograms per liter. So could you go back a couple, Andrew, to the one that shows, because people are out there stating that that's going to happen in 2 years. The word is being used is may, and right there. Is that the, well, go back. Yeah, it is.
Going forward, that's one of the scenarios. Go forward to the 18, and you go to the next one. And this one is
so this
clearer,
is
right?
this is the one that the model shows that, and but in that same scenario, it would happen with all the surrounding properties. It would be worse under these conditions. I mean, that model is basing itself on a 6-month drought and then another 5-year on and off drought to get to this point.
Yeah, what it does is as I understand it, they built the conditions for the model to run with a 6-month drought pumping conditions 6 months, and they just let the model run 5 years. In other words, it would show you, graphing, the time it takes for it to travel in 5 years, the distance it would take to travel in 5 years, and that's when they felt that that line is the distance away from the project site to the wells, to the nearest well, Ferry Street wells, and the time it took, although the time's not really shown on here, but that's why they added it as a line. It says time equal 5 years.
So can I ask why they would have these, like, what would be the purpose of this, to do it like this restrictive? I'm not understanding. It's not giving us a
Andrew, if you
clear
wouldn't mind,
picture.
would you roll up the picture a little higher so we can see the bottom of it? And then you'll see the keywords there.
Like, what is the
Preliminary
purpose of
results for discussion purposes only.
So what would be the point? Is there a reason why this would be the model with these restrictions that they would do this? Would there be a reason for that? I'm just kind of trying to wrap my head around what you're saying, what Ed Eichner said, what Pat Brennan said, what this report's saying, and I'm not understanding it, why they would be this restrictive when they know, one, what's at stake, and two, did we not get the whole thing, that we're not understanding it? Like, can you explain that?
I can't completely explain it at all. Sometimes you make a model, you build the model, you build the conditions for the model, and you let it run to see what results you get. And, I'm sure they did some of that to get some of the preliminary results, and then they built 3 scenarios. And you can see this one they did initially with scenario 4 to see what results they got here. What Ed Eichner had mentioned earlier is that you would normally take real-world data and then real-world elevations of water tables and water table readings, and you would plug that into your model, and you would try to make the model and see if the model predicts existing conditions. It's called calibrating the model. I think that's the best term to give you, where you actually give it real world conditions. Now you've built this great model and you've made some assumptions and you've created some conditions, but you want to make sure the model's giving you good data. So you try to create conditions you can predict the exact real time or real events or real conditions. I don't know if they did any of that. I'm aware that they didn't go out and take any new samples. I'm aware that they didn't go out and take any new water levels. I think they used previous reports and maybe built some of the model and did some calibration runs with previous data from other reports. So I don't know if they did anything further from that. Again, sometimes you'll build a model and you'll put in all these crazy conditions, conservative conditions, to see what the results would be. And then you change some of the conditions to see what that result would be. So I think they were tweaking this and found a scenario, very conservative and perhaps you could argue unreasonable conditions, where if they were to occur, this is what the model predicts would result in 5 years. That may or may not happen. Again, they recognize that with the term may in their conclusions.
Correct. So I'm just going to make a couple statements and let me know if what I'm saying is incorrect. So the Environmental Partners Group, EPG, was tasked with evaluating the impacts to the town municipal water supply from the proposed 40B and the existing homes above the aquifer. EPG, in my opinion, back-calculated the model and determined an arbitrary number of PFAS at Bridle Crossing. EPG did not consider any of the other sources of PFAS within the Zone 2. The EPG model did not account for dilution. Our general bylaw is only for construction. The applicant will make every effort to minimize the use of construction of materials that contain PFAS. There is currently no regulation for PFAS in wastewater. The board cannot regulate a project based on the potential of a future regulation. The proposed wastewater system complies with Title V, Residential use is allowed, is an allowed use within the Zone 2 as per Mass DEP Drinking Water Regulation 310 CMR 22. And we got that information, Ms. Maureen Purcell asked the DEP about that, and that's, we've included her, parts of her letter in our answer. She helped us with that. Are those statements fair, are they?
I think they're fair and accurate.
I mean, that's just how I look at it, and I'm a layman, so.
And Brian, you're reading from the draft decision?
Well, no, we have the draft decision. I know that Maureen Purcell, we included that in her information in there because it was important on the drinking water section. But so, I mean, does anyone have, these to me were the main questions about the water, is, you know, with those statements being made, and I was at both the DPW meeting with the original presentation, then they gave us a different version of the presentation here. But then, you know, my question is why I kept asking, how is this 4% going to cause all these problems? And that's when we dug into the model. And, you know, I'm just a regular Joe, but when you see something that says 180 days without water, and then a continuous 5 years on and off drought, those aren't, in my eye, that's just not realistic. I can't see that. Then if you apply that to the rest of the 96% there, that would be catastrophic in my eyes. It would be unrecoverable. I mean, you'd lose all your wells. It's just, that's how I'm looking at this. That's why we had to sit down and dig into this thing and look at what this model consisted of. And to me, it's important to read the words preliminary results for discussion purposes only.
Well, when the engineers were in front of us and we asked them, does this proposal comply with all state and local laws? They said, yes, it does, but we're anticipating that the laws are going to change.
2027 is what we've been told.
Well, we can't condition, approve a project and can put in conditions on what we anticipate the change is going to be. That's absurd. And I found their report silly, to be charitable.
Well, that's why I hope that the Board of Public Works finishes the rest of this study to incorporate the entire aquifer so we can all see the results, to know that maybe this was, I mean, a very scary scenario, but if you add in the rest of them, God help us.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, and the town has spent a
Absolutely.
small fortune to get this study. The study ought to be based on reality, not some Armageddon scenario involving one discrete 15-acre parcel. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd.
Does anyone else need to discuss the water any further?
The water end of this, as you said, Brian, it's very, it leads us into a scary scenario. There's no question about it.
Terrifying.
And you saw the town came out because they were scared. And I think that, I mean, someone owes them an explanation of this. How you can create this model that is, in my eyes, it's just,
It appears to me
you
the
can't have
model
a
was
we
created.
don't have 5-year droughts.
This
We just
model was
don't.
created to come up with these results, but nonetheless, even with that being said, we still have a scenario. When you say we can't take into future regulations and stuff, you still can't get it out of your mind either. It's still.
Yeah, but Larry,
it's still there.
that is based on a
Oh,
5-year
I
drought.
know, I
You can't-
completely get
this is
that. I
not-
don't have a whole lot of.
But you
faith
have
in
to
this.
look at what's in front of us. What we believe is that water goes easterly.
Yeah.
This is pulling it to the well. From all this, they go back to they have it in here, it's back to the 70s and 80s, that water has always been determined to go to the east. So it goes down and goes into the river and out to the ocean. It doesn't go to the well. Some of it they have a scenario where some, at a low time of year, goes out to Grove Street and they meander down towards the Church Street well, but they believe it sits in the wetlands. They
Yep.
don't show it going to the well.
Sure.
So we have all those years of that information, but then you throw this model at us, and I'll tell you, in the beginning, until you pull the thing apart and start looking at the parameters, which are just beyond unreasonable, it's scary.
They're not based on reality.
They're not.
And it ignores, it's what, 4% of Zone 2, it ignores the other 96%.
But then you have people out there regurgitating this without putting the word may in there, or even discussing to say, everyone that believes in a 5-year drought, this may happen. So for those people, I'm sure that if you believe in a 5-year drought, then you might believe in this study.
To me, it's a colossal waste of time and money so far.
So, I mean, I think I've had enough of the water. Is anyone else have more questions on that?
We have an opportunity to discuss the system itself again, or we
Absolutely.
pass it?
Talk anything you
Because,
want.
I mean, to me, the water, everything this whole water scenario is coming from the system. That's how it's getting there.
Yeah.
So I think we need to hammer down as an absolute agreement, come to an agreement on the system, how it's going to be governed, how it's going to be installed, what the fail-safe is going to be, some type of financial situation. I don't have a lot of faith in
Well, Ed, just to discuss the system again. So, again, what we're talking about here is, I met with Rod Procaccino, and we were discussing, it had come up at one of the meetings, what would be a good number of units, which is something I'd like to discuss tonight. So, allowed on this 15 acres is 65 units. That means a conventional systems, like originally were there, no clean-to system. And so what you're talking about is the difference between the clean-to system is basically like you're putting in a conventional system and you're making it a hybrid by adding this. It doesn't take away from the conventional system. And the reason that they're going to the clean-to system, Ed, stop me if I'm wrong here, is in order to get to the number of bedrooms they want, which is a difference between 65 is allowed and 15 acres. They want 88. It's a difference of 23 bedrooms. So that 23 bedrooms split among 8 building is roughly, 3 bedrooms per unit. That's what we're splitting hairs over. The clean-to system, Ed, hasn't it been recognized recently as one of the best systems to use in the state?
Yeah, it's reached what's called best available nitrogen removal technology. So it's reached that standard already in their provisional use. So I anticipate in another year or so it'll be in what's called general use. It means you can use it anywhere. There's no special requirements per se. I did ask John Smith from Clean-to what his required provisional use, because he's on a provisional now, what their required reporting frequency is, and it's quarterly, so it's 4 times a year. And when provisional expires or is superseded by general use, which means general use approval means it's been established with lots of data, lots of systems, and again, there's over 100 of them in Massachusetts now. That frequency will drop, it will, according to John, it will probably be twice a year. So it'll be up to DEP, and I think we should include that language in the requirements that in the decision conditions, that it'd be quarterly testing and reporting up until they achieve a general use permit for the technology, and then the appropriate reporting required by DEP under general use is what the frequency would convert to.
I thought we discussed that it was going to be a monthly testing of the system with reporting to the Marshfield Board of Health and the DPW
It was the
for the
DE.
life of the system, DEP or the DPW.
DEP and Board of Health is what Title
What it
V
was?
calls for.
Yeah, but we were going to do, it was going to be for the lifetime of the system, correct? We weren't going to just at the 3-4 years that they have it there.
I believe you said quarterly for the lifetime of the
I thought it was
system.
It's quarterly for the life of the
Okay.
system.
I do.
But
Okay,
it was for the life of the system.
okay.
But to me,
No.
I mean, it's hard because, you know, we'd all like to see a reduction in units, but from what I understand and what I was told is that it's a difference of 3 bedrooms in each one of these units, and that clean-to system is really important to keep the nitrogen out of that area. I mean, it really, it works, it's one of the best systems, it's tough, I don't want to give that up myself.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it's just a really tough spot we're put in here.
Yep.
Because you want to do the best that you can. And to me, 3 bedrooms per building isn't a deal breaker. I just think we have to accept it to get those systems.
Now, tell me something, Ed. When we talked about it before, this system is warranted by the engineering company for 3 years, correct? Is that correct? If they put this in and 18 months down the road it was failing, would they guarantee they'd come in and do what they needed to do to correct it?
Well, I don't know what the term of the warranty is. All I know is that they're required under the provisional use permit to do quarterly testing and correct deficiencies as required to make it work. I think you already have some language in the decision that says if for some reason it catastrophically doesn't work, that you replace it with something that is, in my opinion, or in our total opinion, and the term is best available nitrogen reducing technology,
So I think-
BANRT, that you provide another system that is 10 milligrams per liter, produces achieves an effluent concentration of 10 milligrams per liter of total nitrogen or less, or connect to sewer.
Or connect to sewer, which either option would be expensive. So even with the solar panels that we allow around town, there's a decommission
It's 1.5
financial
times.
put in there.
Right,
So-
1.5 times the removal. But of course, the solar panels, they don't know what that costs because they have
Could
no
we
idea how to dispose of
get
it.
some type of condition in here with the system, if the system is having issues 2,
I
3,
mean,
5 years down the road?
The thing with the system is,
It's a condition in the decision.
we have a condition in
Yeah,
there.
it requires a replacement of the system unless it meets this current standard.
But we're dependent on them having the money at that point, if they ran into a problem then.
Ed, can you just explain this system, because I think we're overcomplicating this. I'm all for putting the money into it. It's just, it uses air and charcoal, and that's why we ask for generators, so that we,
It doesn't use charcoal, it uses air, it uses actually wood chips.
Wood chips, all right.
And a filter, and an actual plastic media, and so it uses air. So it pumps air, it doesn't pump any other compounds into the system.
so it's air and
So
wood
it-
chips,
It basically just aerates the system, correct?
correct.
It aerates, it creates conditions for,
Bacteria to grow.
okay, you bringing it up?
Yeah.
The first chamber is called the submerged aeration chamber. The second chamber, where you lose the oxygen, is where the denitrifying step happens, the denitrification chamber. So one step creates biological activity to engage the bacteria, so that the second step, or in this case, step 3 here, the denitrification chamber is where that bacteria removes the nitrogen, breaks apart the nitrogen so it becomes, the nitrogen and oxygen molecules become broken apart, and they're just go into the air as harmless gases.
Would you have an estimated cost on that system, Ed,
They told us it was $50,000
per system?
per system for each one. So 8 of them, that's $400,000 is the cost they're adding to this, to put this in.
I'm working on a project in Martha's Vineyard, for the Martha's Vineyard Hospital, and I'm aware that the nitro system it is more expensive, and it's approximately an extra $30,000 for a single-family home,
Yeah, the other.
just for that system.
Yeah, just the other system that could go in there was only $22,000, but he went with the clean to.
The system is showing some really fantastic results at or below, certainly at or below conventional large-scale wastewater treatment technology for nitrogen removal. Anything sub 5 is really outstanding, sub 5 parts per million nitrogen, and they're seeing, testing now with the way that they've advanced the system below 5 and below 4. Just to give fair time, there's another technology out there as well that works to have the same performance. So there's not just one.
Do you know if this one has the most, is the furthest along in the DEP approvals, or do you know?
Heidi, I don't know. I don't know if the other one it's a Pia Lombardo system. I'm not sure that one is as far. I just don't know.
So,
I can't say.
I thought that came up before when I looked on DEP. I didn't see that it went, anyone was going as far as this one has gone. And the DEP letter, their provisional use, I mean, they have so many regulations in this document. If any of you guys want to look at it again, if you didn't get a chance to look at it, there's so many things in place to safeguard that we are already putting into our decision, whatever way we go. It's already in there to help protect the town, which, I mean, that is our whole goal for being here to begin with, is to protect the town the best that we can based on what we're given.
Yeah. So now, Bob, should we pick up where we left off at the last meeting, since we've discussed the water and the wastewater?
Where you stopped was we got to the findings
Right.
section.
Andrew, do you want to pull up the findings section, which is
That begins
page 9?
on page 9.
Of the draft decision? Is that what you
Yes,
want?
yes, the most recent one,
The one we got tonight.
the one we have with all the new information in it.
Hang on, having a little bit of technical difficulty.
All right.
Is that you guys can do if that's the latest one?
That is not.
Yeah, that's not the latest one.
Where is it in your folder?
The last draft saved.
Andrew, Nancy's saying
This
it's
is
the,
the last draft that was saved.
this is the last draft that was saved?
There's a clean one that has no markings on it.
Oh, so there should be a clean one that has no markings on it?
That's not.
As I
Did it
encourage-
come-
I'll go
Okay.
double check to see, make sure. I might have saved the one that has the red lines.
Nancy's gonna go make sure she saved the right one.
Worst comes to worst, I can certainly bring it up from here.
Yeah.
Do you want me to email it to him?
Oh, yeah. Could do that too.
Yeah.
Just email it directly to.
Andrew, do you want Ed to email it to you?
I'll email it.
Yeah, please, Ben.
Yeah. Go ahead. Someone email it.
I'll email it to him right now.
While we're waiting, I just wanted to, I saw that Bob had not seen my minor edits. I added some language in there. Bob, I'd just like you to take a look at that before you finalize everything. Nothing would change, I think, the spirit and intent of anything you wrote, and just with a couple things in there I embellished on.
I need to, maybe you could just tell it to us and I can fix it as we go.
I got it up. I resent it to you today when you said you didn't see it, and then I have it up on my computer right now, so I can do that as we go.
Yeah, because we have a clean version up and I can edit anything that needs to be edited as we go.
Okay, then why don't you, while you're doing that, why don't you go to, while we're waiting, item D, earth removal impacts,
Item D, earth
on
removal.
page 10, under findings, because you started on findings.
Yep.
Earth removal, yeah, okay.
Okay. In the last sentence, it mentions 24 feet of earth removal material separating, and I inserted the estimated seasonal high in front of the word groundwater.
Separating,
The estimated seasonal high, because that's what it was.
got it?
Okay. Can wait till you get the other one up.
The online version isn't being edited. The one that I have on my computer is being edited. So tell me where the next one is.
Okay, well, then let me make sure you've already done, I'm gonna bring up the clean version on my computer too, just so I see if it was dealt with. This is, the next section, I just found a format issue. It's on page 12.
Okay, hold on a
You
minute.
have some bullets underneath, large paragraph says the board also finds the EPG study
Hold on a
performed.
minute, hold on a minute. Page 12.
Just see if you cleaned it up already. You probably already did. Yeah. So you got bullet B, then followed by A, B, C, and it's in already lettered bullets. So I got rid of the bullet B, the sub-bullet B. Where at the bottom of page 12, it says EPG also utilized conditions and made assumptions that unrealistically exaggerate the project impact from nitrogen loading in PFAS. And I was just gonna take item B, you could just add that as a sentence after that, and then A, B, and C should be 1, 2, and 3.
Will not be
It's
lettered.
already a sub-paragraph of paragraph E, wastewater impacts.
I only have I have it.
I have what he's talking about, the B, A, B, C.
Right here.
Well, I see the formatting issue. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna pull
I would
B
just
up,
say that the first B, you just make it part of
the
just
sentence
add that
above.
sentence after the last sentence above.
And I'm gonna edit it, I think I see what you're talking about, is it just
No,
watch the
it shouldn't.
screen, and let me know this is what you're talking about.
Yep, that's it.
Let me go to it. That's it.
Yep.
Okay, I'll
And then
edit
A,
out.
B, and
ABC.
C should be 1, 2, and 3.
I think it would be better if Andrew didn't edit it and I edited it, so we only have one that's being edited, because
Okay.
otherwise we're
I
gonna
got
lose. I made the change.
Okay. So, anything else, Ed?
So that's going up there, and there's gonna be one.
Let me keep going.
Are the Ed Eichner ones in here as well?
Yes. Yep,
Yep. Go to page 16.
got it?
In item 13, under technology, best available nitrogen reducing technology, you have 10 milligrams in parentheses, I just added, to treat the effluent to 10 milligrams. So just in front of the word, in front of the 10, to treat the effluent to.
To treat the effluent
To.
to, okay.
Just see where else. page 22, item 10, had a comment
22.
from Mr. Reichner, and I wanted to make sure that that wording was added, and I assume you inserted that somehow.
Page 22, item 10.
Item 10. And I did look at the final version of this. So Ed commented a similar comment to what I had commented on, which is the, this should, the minimum of 3 years comment. So, let me see, where is it?
The problem is this condition 10 kind of overlaps the earlier condition 13 in the prior section. They both speak to the same issues. So
Yes.
they shouldn't. There should only be one section.
Okay, in the section that in the comment that Ed had provided, I'm just trying to get to it here. Let me,
I incorporated Ed's comment into this paragraph. I literally cut and pasted his comment into this, because that's what I thought he had instructed me to do.
yes,
And I changed the word testing to quarterly testing, based on what I just heard.
right. But I don't see the comment about a contract for 3 years, that the applicant shall enter into a contract for the required O&M testing, and he said he wrote for 3 years.
Yeah,
And this should,
No,
a
but-
minimum period of 3 years for the required O&M testing. And then he added, this should continue until the nitro is granted general approval with a 10 milligram per liter total nitrogen discharge.
so if you look at
General
that,
use-
if you look at that paragraph that's in the yellow highlights, that's exactly what it says now. Until the proposed nitro system is granted general approval with a 10
Got
milligram
it.
per
Now I
liter.
see it, yep, now I see it, yep, thank you.
But that doesn't mean for the lifetime of the system. That's until it's granted a general approval.
So this is where it should be, that it's for the lifetime of the system.
I need some help from the experts.
Yeah, we need the quarterly testing for the lifetime of the system in there.
Well, Ed Eichner recommended that it be until granted general approval with the 10 milligrams per liter total nitrogen discharge.
Okay.
So if you want more than that, tell me what you want me to put in and I'll put it in.
Larry?
The lifetime of the system, quarterly, just
Quarterly
what they have
testing.
there, quarterly testing for the lifetime of the system.
Reported to DEP and Board of Health, Marshfield.
I mean, I assume, yeah, okay, so until the proposed so it should be for the life of the system
Right,
instead of the other thing,
yes.
okay? All right, I'm making that change.
And that covers everything right there.
And the only other thing that I noticed, the table that lists the waivers,
Yep.
there's one talks about the general provisions of the Marshfield earth removal bylaw, and it mentions in the vote was made that no more than 150,000 cubic yards shall be removed.
Yep.
Yeah,
Was the vote?
Yep.
That should be made
This figure shall be reduced.
125.
Right, so you got 125 somewhere else, so I wanted to make sure it's
Right.
consistent. And
We're
let me go-
allowing
let
up
me
to
go-
150.
I'll change that, I got it.
Okay, that was the only other
I understood.
minor
I
edits.
understood
Everything
why
that
there
I
were
had
two
written
different
in-
numbers. I don't
that I'd been written in, we all looked at, was excellent, and I think it's in good shape.
Now, is this the point here at this paragraph where we should be discussing some type of financial fail-safe for the system? That if the system does go into a failure, I understand it's, they have to replace the system or hook into a storage system, but is there any type of guarantee for us, for the town, that there's gonna be money available for this?
What normally happens with that, Bob?
So if we've had in town septic systems for larger developments that fail, and specifically some condominium developments.
Currently.
And even an apartment development in the past, and we we give them some time, but they're required to upgrade and repair those systems. And if they don't, then we would have to take more drastic action, which could include telling them their occupancy or ability to occupy those units are done. We've never had to go beyond that.
Yeah.
About 20 years ago, the town began suing some of the downtown business owners because all of the septic systems were in failure. And a couple of the septic system owners were able to upgrade their systems to get a maximum level of compliance. I mean, the downtown sits, like the bottom of the systems are like 2 feet above the groundwater.
It's in the ground.
And ultimately, the solution was the town brought the sewer line up through downtown, and then all the businesses closed, but connected. But there were a couple of businesses that operated on a tight tank, like Papagino's. People remember there was a
Yeah.
Papagino's at the corner?
Yeah.
They operated on a tight tank because they couldn't discharge the groundwater, and the town sued all the business owners to force that to happen. That's what would happen.
But again, I mean, we just discussed all the houses that are over this system already, that are there, that their systems may or may not be in failure or whatnot, but they're existing houses, so they're there, no one's ever gonna yank their occupancy and kick them out of their home.
So there's an issue, though, like down on the Cape where Ed Pesci's talking about.
Yeah.
Something.
They've already ordered they've declared the entire Cape like a nitrogen-sensitive area, and all homes in this area, whatever that is, because I haven't read it myself, but have to upgrade within 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and,
Or connect to sewer.
or connect to sewer. So the towns of the Cape are rushing around, and that's why you see these clean-to systems going in and down the Cape, and people are rushing to connect to sewer, expand sewer down there, because that's the solution.
Yeah.
Those are state orders, not local orders.
So what is the board's feeling on having some type of financial
You looking for like a bond?
set aside,
Bond
yeah,
or something?
bond or money, just like we do with,
Go ahead, Bob.
Well, here's the problem, and this is a 40B problem, not your problem.
Yeah.
You can't require a 40B applicant to do something that you don't require a regular homeowner to do. And if you require it, the developer would have a right to appeal, and I would tell you more likely than not, that condition will be stricken because it's not equally applied to other types of projects. And we have other types of projects that have been permitted, including in the last couple of years, where this condition is not included. When the original project was permitted, there were conditions that were imposed on the project, and the most significant one was related to earth removal. There was a concern by the board that if the applicant removed the 355,000 cubic yards of material
Wouldn't get
and
built.
walked away from the project, then the town would be left without an approved project, and we required all the money from the earth removal to be placed in trust until he funded the contribution that was required to construct the project. That was the financial surety, and we did impose another surety in the earlier project for roadway damage. Because in the original project, they were going to be processing earth for 3 to 5 years on site, crushing, all of those types of things. And then they were going to be hauling, originally down the DPW Hall Road, but out from Clay Pit Road onto, Furnace Street, down by the schools, and we put a $75,000 surety bond for damage to the roadway. That's the only bonds that we applied in the original project.
Ed, on this project now, is it 9 months they're planning on for the trucking?
It looks like it'd be approximately 9 months, yes. It's all less than a year. It depends on how many truck trips per day you calculate. I can look up what they did calculate, and then I used a more, I think, conservative truck trips per day was 30 truck trips per day. They used 40. And it's funny because the previous iteration they did 10 years ago was 20 truck trips per day.
Yeah.
So, you know, it depends on what you look at. But anyway, it was still, in one of my comment letters, my original comment letters was still going to be less than a year. So 9-10 months.
Okay. Is there anything else, Bob, that we have to review in here?
Well, this has an earth removal condition limiting them to no more than 40 trucks per day.
Right.
And that's what we had in other 40B project conditions.
Generally what we do. Ed, were there anything else that you saw in here that,
No, I think
reread this thing?
it covers what I remember the board
Yeah,
being concerned about.
Yeah, what we asked for in the
And I
last
think-
meeting.
And I think it adequately describes the review that's been done and the status of the documents provided and so on, and incorporates much of the previous conditions and restrictions that we have collectively used on other projects.
Does anyone else feel, Bob, is there anything else you'd like to go through?
Well, I think you kind of need to look at these findings and make sure that they're the findings that you agree with. So, this is not the first draft of this, so,
So go to page 9.
I mean, if you want, I'll summarize them
Yeah.
for you. Would
Yeah,
that be
just like
helpful?
we did last time.
So what you should be doing as you prepare to decide this matter is you should be agreeing with the findings, agreeing with the conditions, then you take a vote overall on the project.
Right.
I mean, there's some things that are just, they're just true. I mean,
Right.
they have site control, they have, the town hasn't reached certain minimum. I mean, those things are undisputable. But the findings are things that you need to decide. So if you want, I'll go to the findings and.
Yeah, page 9,
Yep.
and we'll go through them.
So the findings, the first finding, and it begins with that introductory language, which is what we usually have in all of our decisions. And then the findings relate to like the 5 or 6 aspects of this project that were the most controversial. So the first one had to do with density. And it talks about density being a legitimate planning tool, having an impact on water supply, wastewater disposal, stormwater drainage, fire protection, traffic, circulation, availability, open space. All of those things are relevant to comprehensive permit proceedings. And the finding is that although the proposed amended project increases density from the prior approved project, the board is satisfied that the applicant has carefully planned its development and incorporated design features that minimize the temporary impacts and will not have any permanent adverse impacts on the town. So, and then the next finding is the board finds that the proposed amended project will not, when conforming to the conditions of the decisions, be a threat to public health, safety, the occupants of the project, the neighborhood, or the town, and will not adversely impact public water supply of the town of Marshfield, which is already threatened and showing impacts by existing development, including impacts from nitrogen and likely PFAS contained in wastewater. So that's the finding on density. On traffic, there was a lot of talk at the beginning of this project about traffic. Then we had the traffic peer review, and the traffic peer review basically confirmed that this project doesn't present any type of conflicts with any accepted traffic standards. So the finding is that the board finds that the proposed project will not, when conforming to the conditions of the decision, be a threat to public health, safety, and occupants of the project, the neighborhood of the town. C is the stormwater management aspect of the project. This is the aspect of the project that our civil engineers, Mr. Pesci and Mr. Brennan, studied the most. And the board is indicating it's satisfied that the revised designed as condition will adequately address on-site stormwater issues. Basically, the project has to comply with the state stormwater management regulations and any unwaived local regulations. They haven't sought any other waivers for the stormwater any other stormwater local regulations. D is the earth removal impacts. And this is, I think, where you were speaking about Ms. Purcell's letter.
Yeah.
Because her letter concerned earth removal concerns. And
Water.
the finding is that the board finds a proposed project will not, when conforming to the conditions of the decision, be a threat to public health and safety of the occupants of the project, the neighborhood of the town, or its water supply. The DEP wrote to resident Maureen Purcell on March 6, 2024, concerning her earth removal concerns and associated impacts to the aquifer. The letter that DEP wrote, which is included in your record, informed
Right.
her, and that was provided to your board, that the excavation as proposed is not prohibited by Mass DEP regulations as long as 4 feet of earth materials remain above the historical high groundwater elevation. The board finds that there's no less than 24 feet of earth materials separating the estimated seasonal high groundwater from the bottom of any proposed wastewater disposal system. So that's something that I was told by Mr. Pesci, and we included in the thing the minimum distance of 24 feet, and I think that was verified by Mr. Brennan. Exhibit E is what you talked about tonight. The board finds a proposed project will not, when conforming to the conditions of the decision, be the significant threat to the water quality claimed by abutters, interested parties, and the Board of Public Works. And it looks to me like the next section deals with no adverse impact from nitrogen. It seemed to me that all the experts agreed that even under their modeling, the nitrogen from this project with the nitro system would not impact adversely the wells. Then the next paragraph talks about the Horsley and Witten groundwater flow. Skipping over to the next page, 11. All peer reviewers and the experts engaged by the Board of Public Works, EPG, confirmed that there are no local, state, or federal laws or regulations that regulate PFAS and wastewater. The board finds, in the absence of a state or federal law or regulation that prohibits or establishes limits on the quantities of PFAS and wastewater, and also the town's lack of regulation or enforcement limits for PFAS and wastewater, including for conventional housing development, that is not legally permissible to deny a low or moderate income housing project on that basis. I think that was what Mr. Sullivan was speaking about earlier. The next paragraph is something that we've been toying around all the way along, and I think Mr. Carrier brought it up all the way along. We do have one local regulation, Section 285-19, one of our general bylaws. That bylaw wasn't in place at the time the original comprehensive permit was approved, and this is an amended project. But based on what I've been hearing from you all, even though there hasn't been a uniform enforcement, I think that the interest was to try to make them comply with this as much as possible. So when we get into a condition, you're going to see there's an explanation for we're obligating them to try to comply with this.
They agreed to do it. Best they
But, you
could.
know, if there had been uniform enforcement, and there hasn't been,
No.
then things would be different. There might even be additional conditions. And then tonight, I heard you talking again about the other sources of PFAS and the same wellhead protection zone and recharge areas. Had the study requested that it model with the same assumptions these other projects throughout the watershed. The results would likely demonstrate under existing conditions an adverse impact to the closest public drinking water supply wells. And then the next paragraph dealt with the assumptions that you and Mr. Sullivan spoke about tonight about, you know, the assumptions are not conservative but highly improbable. And it mentions each one of the assumptions. If you skip over to the next page on 12, the paragraph beginning with the word "since" talks about the 100 homes that you've been talking about, and it is unlikely that the projected wastewater from this site will cause any materially different impacts than the 100 homes with 250 to 400 bedrooms that are already closer to the well. And then the next paragraph talks about if the town's drinking water supply wells are more likely to be contaminated from existing wastewater disposal systems, and that will occur before any wastewater containing PFAS from this project reaching the wells. That's kind of what you've been talking about here. In April, this is information again from Mr. Eichner. April 2024, EPA promulgated a drinking water maximum contaminant level of 4 parts per trillion for PFAS. Public water suppliers, including the Board of Public Works, are required to complete monitoring by 2027 and implement solutions by 2029 if testing levels exceed the maximum level. Current testing shows that Marshfield wells are under this limit. The regulatory steps are the same as any other drinking water contaminant. There are only approved drinking water regulations for PFAS. These considerations impact the reliability of the presentation. And then the next part deals with the assumptions. And going over to the next page, finds that there is a need for affordable housing in the town of Marshfield, which you're required to find because we're below 10%. And the amended project addresses the need for that housing goal and moves the town close to meeting its affordable housing goals. Finds that the site setback from Ferry Street and adjoining a landfill is suitable for the proposed development, and any negative impacts can be mitigated by the conditions imposed by the decision. And although it doesn't comply with all of the general and zoning bylaw provisions, in order to fulfill the purpose intent of the decision, the board waives all local rules and regulations to the extent necessary to complete this project. Without this limitation, I think that ought to change, by the way.
What do you think it should say?
The board shouldn't waive all local rules and regulations. Should waive only those regulations that are requested.
Yes.
This is not correct. The board waives only the local rules and regulations set forth in its waivers. Sets forth in the waiver section
For this project.
of this decision.
Just for everybody's edification, Bob, you're changing the one on your desk, but
Yes.
obviously Andrew's not
Andrew's
changing
not
the one that's on the screen.
Yeah.
Right.
So the board waives only the local rules and regulations set forth in the waiver section of this decision. You're not waiving everything.
Correct.
So then the next part of this decision is the decision itself, and you hold that off. Then you get into the conditions of approval. So the conditions of approval are set forth in a bunch of different sections. There's some general conditions of approval, and a lot of them are standard conditions that you've imposed on every other project. They're going to have to come up with final site plans that comply with the requirements of this decision, because the plans that are done right now are not final. Nothing in the decision is interpreted as relieving the applicant of its burden to obtain easements, licenses, or other permission from any abutting property owner if it becomes necessary to get on anybody else's land, and that would be true of the land that's under the care and custody of the Board of Public Works. The conditions run with the land and they're permanent. It permits not greater than 56 rental unit and accessory garages shown on the revised plans. They have to obtain all other necessary permits, federal, state, and local, required for the construction of the project, and there are a number of them. We don't enumerate them all, but there are a multitude of other permits and approvals that are going to be required, and the last of which will be the building permits from the building commissioner. They have to fund a construction monitor, and that's a standard condition. Condition 13 is the condition regarding the clean to. It's the first condition regarding the wastewater system, which is going to be required. Any wastewater system failure has to be reported to the Board of Health, and every system has to be inspected at least quarterly for the lifetime of the system. If the performance of the system exceeds this requirement that we've established, and then is deemed by the Board of Health to be non-performing, the applicant has to repair or replace the system with the best available nitrogen technology, or connect to the municipal sewer system. Each system has to be equipped with a backup power source. It's not something the applicant was agreeable to, but that's something that was recommended by all of the peer review consultants. And those plans have to depict that. They have to incorporate a maintenance program that will remain in place that requires more frequent pumping of the septic tanks. This was an EPG recommendation that they pump the septic tanks more frequently to lessen the amount of PFAS and wastewater being discharged into the ground on the site.
Pardon me, real quick.
Yep.
With that section there with the system, should there be a time frame in there, or is the time frame governed by the Board of Health?
Well, the Board of Health is going to receive the monitoring reports.
Yep.
And if they receive one failure and they can't, they'll be right on it if there's a failure, because we have other systems that have failed.
Yep.
And if they don't resolve it by the next time, the Board of Health has the authority under this decision to declare the system in failure and required to be replaced.
So the Board of Health would implement a time frame.
Yeah, so one of the things you can't do is reserve for yourself the right to decide something that might happen in the future. So you'll assign tasks of things that might happen in the future, either to the building commissioner, to your peer review consultants, to the Board of Health. If there was a Conservation Commission issue, it would be a Concom issue. The only issue that's conservation-related is this site is located within a estimated priority habitat of an eastern box turtle, and they're gonna have to get a state permit called a Conservation and Management Permit,
Sure.
and that'll assign, and there'll be a restriction placed on the property. So that'll take care of itself with
So with
them.
the system of failure, the Board of Health would govern that time, that it's addressed in a timely fashion.
Board of Health will do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep. So, 15, these are the condition 15 are the conditions that have been requested by, I think, the planner, having to do with a fenced playground area and a dog walk area
right.
that has to be constructed prior to 75% completion of the project, equipped with waste bag dispensers and a receptacle, an operation and maintenance plan for cleanup and maintenance of the playground and dog park area, and the removal of the covered structure proposed at the entrance where it crosses the bridle path. The off-site bridle path improvements are shown on notes 1 and 2 on the cover sheet, and those have to be completed prior to the release of any building permits. I forget exactly what they were, but this was something that I was
Yes.
asked to put in.
Right.
And Mr. Pesci, or whoever is serving as our peer review engineer, has to approve that prior to the issuance of any building permits. Section 8, beginning on page 16, these are the affordable housing requirements. There's 14 dwelling units that have to be affordable to someone earning 80% of the area median income. That's an affordable standard. And they have to contain a mixture of 3, 2, and 1 bedroom units. These are
Heidi noticed that 80%, isn't that supposed to be 70?
What, we doing 70?
Yeah.
80%.
We can't do
Where
70.
did we talk about 70?
It's 80%.
I know what it says, but
The state standard is 80.
do we have to stick with that?
Unless the applicant is willing to agree to have more, like, in some communities, like Barnstable, they pay a developer they subsidize the housing to go down to like 50%.
Right.
They're super affordable, but it's 80%.
All right.
So they have to sign a regulatory agreement. That's how the project becomes actually affordable. They propose using Delphic Associates to monitor the leasing. They're kind of one of the leading companies that does that, or they'll have to propose somebody else to you. And the affordable units have to be indistinguishable from the other units. Then there's some marketing and lottery conditions that we put in all of our projects. The construction and management submission requirements, these are basically verbatim from all your prior permits that deal with 40Bs. There were a couple of additional ones. I think there were a couple of additional ones that were requested by the engineers that we inserted in there. Then there's some site development construction conditions. Usually it starts with a site meeting. There has to be safe and convenient vehicle access to the site. All town representatives have to be able to access the site at any time during normal business hours. The Mr. Pesci, the building department have to be able to conduct an inspection at any reasonable time. They have to have final architectural plans. They have to ensure that no nuisance conditions exist in and around the site during construction. There are dust, noise, traffic, roadway conditions. The wastewater treatment condition that's been modified is again here. There's some limitations on what types of imported soil they can bring in when they're backfilling pipes and things like that. And those all have to be tested at their expense. A final utility plan has to be approved by your consulting engineer and the building commissioner. There is a consistent requirement that the site be stabilized during the project. No blasting is allowed. Within 120 days, they have to submit an as-built plan. The roadway design has to conform to the design on the approved plans. There are some limitation on construction. Nothing before 7 during the weekdays and nothing before 8 on Saturdays. All exterior construction has to cease by 6 p.m. on every day. There are no Sunday hours or holiday hours. All the area and roadway lighting has to be shielded down. There's no on-site storage of hazardous materials except as incidentally related to fueling something that's being done on-site. There's a condition that requires slow release or organic nitrogen lawn fertilizers. There's some covenants. No occupancy permits are going to be given until they, complete certain stages of the project. All the affordable restrictions have to be recorded. This project, once it starts, can't stop. There can't be any work stoppages. And 24 is the condition that we're trying to mimic the 285-19-1 standards. Wherever reasonably possible, select and use materials that do not contain PFAS, and use wherever reasonably possible construction methodologies intended to lessen the ability of PFAS to enter the soil and groundwater. The applicant shall provide the board's peer review consultants with a list of substances that contain chemicals containing PFAS or any other substance described in 285-19-1 to the extent that that list is commercially available and the applicant expects to use them in connection with the construction of the project. The notice to the peer review consultant has to include a description of the work plan and how they're going to reduce the impacts from PFAS. And there's a continuing education requirement that's going to be asked of the applicant and the owner to keep the residents advised of what they have to do to keep PFAS out of groundwater. And again, the septic tanks have to be pumped more frequently. This says at least once every other year or more frequently. I don't know what to put in here. I need the experts to say what to put in here.
Well, Title V, I think, requires yearly on a conditional system. Ed, is that timeframe correct?
So I'd have to look it up, but, on large systems, at least it should be done every other year, so every 2 years. But I can look into that. I think if you put in there, while you're reviewing the rest of it, let me just check something and maybe I can get a quick answer for you.
Sounds good.
So we'll come back to that thing on the top of page 25. Then there's the earth removal conditions. Trees have to be cut, not bulldozed. Stumps can't be buried. Excavation near the property lines is permitted only pursuant to the revised plans. Earth must be removed to contours set forth in the approved site plan. Finished grades will be as indicated on the final plans. All roadways shall be treated to minimize dust and mud for not less than 50 feet back from the public way. Any spillage in public ways cleaned up by the applicant on a daily basis. They are responsible for monitoring the amount of earth removal. Shall be limited to 125,000 cubic yards, so that has to change.
But it says, but no more than
But no more
100.
than-
No, I took that out. I've taken it out, because we've limited it to 125. Final report has to be prepared certifying
Isn't it someplace else?
as to the completion. Truck traffic shall be routed to Clay Pit Road if it's possible, otherwise it'll go to Ferry Street. No more than 40 trips a day. All damage to the street and ways has to be repaired at the cost and expense of the applicant. No processing of gravel materials on site. The additional conditions are, it has to begin within 3 years or the permit lapses. The decision has to be filed with the office of the town clerk. If they want to make changes to the project, they have to comply with the state regulations. They have to submit documentation from a management company outlining the general operation and maintenance plans for all interior and exterior common areas, including snow management, trash and recycling management, removal, and landscaping. The final plan is to record it at the registry. Those plans have to indicate it's subject of a comprehensive permit. Town is not responsible for the approval of the, if there are any defects in the design, it's the responsibility of the applicant. The profit caps required by state law and regulations are imposed. And again, someone can always come back and ask to increase the number of units. I don't know how it would work on this site, but there are some miscellaneous legal requirements. These roads are never going to be, the driveway's never going to be offered as a public way. And then section 16 deals with the waivers. I think as we fixed it, I included they sent a letter on May 13th asking for a waiver of that 285-19-1, and I think we've said we're going to deny that waiver.
Right.
So that was the May 13th letter that the blank was left for. So no other waivers apply, and then these are the waivers that you discussed the last time, and I fixed the earth removal limited to 125.
So in the waivers, we have that it says granted as per revised plans, no more than 150, which was what in that wording was. Are we changing that?
I took that out and made it
Both
125.
sides? Okay.
125.
Correct.
Both places.
In every location now.
It's 125.
Okay. All right.
So those are your conditions that, I've
Just
been
quickly, Bob,
given back and forth with you.
do we have maybe I wasn't paying attention, the one with the, if they run into any hazardous waste?
Let me just see, I think I added something on
Yeah.
that. I was asked to add something on
Yes.
that. Just let me find it. If you look on page 23, condition number 19, in the event during construction, any hazardous materials emanating from the abutting landfill are discovered at concentrations greater than Massachusetts contingency plan reporting concentrations, the condition shall forthwith be reported in writing to the board's construction monitor, the Board of Health, this board, and to the DEP in accordance with state laws and regulations. And, if you have a hazardous waste issue, you've got to comply with whatever DEP tells you to
Right.
do.
Okay.
And so those materials will have to be removed.
All right.
Bob, could we go back to the affordability part real quick?
The which one?
The affordability, where they were talking about the percentage of affordability, 80%?
Yes.
Is there any way we could get in there some type of Marshfield resident preferences?
It is actually in there.
In there.
Okay, so let me explain how that works. The town actually has to justify the need for a local preference, and what we have done in the past is the planner and the assistant planner submit information to the state, and they'll allow, the applicant's not going to stand in the way of it, but they're not going to be responsible for doing our job. So if the town justifies it, then we can include that in there, and it'll be offered for preference. So if you look at page 18, these are marketing and lottery affordable unit conditions. Condition number 2, to the extent permissible by law, the project shall provide for residential preference for up to 70% of the affordable units for the following tenants: current Marshfield residents, Marshfield employees, employees of businesses located in Marshfield, and households with children attending Marshfield Public Schools. Providing such preferences condition on the town of Marshfield providing ELOC and the subsidizing AG with a justification for it. So the applicant has got to cooperate with us if we do that. That's in there, Larry. 70% of the affordable units, if we do our homework, would be set aside for Marshfield people.
Okay. When you say do our homework, who would be doing?
Greg does the.
The planning.
Greg really has to justify the need for these groups of people to have this type of housing.
Okay.
That's how that works. So,
So regarding pumping, I can give you a quick answer. The Title V references a performance standard, like whenever there's a sludge layer or solid layer within 12 inches or less at the bottom of the outlet tee. But it does mention that pumping frequency is a function of use, but is typically required at least once every 3 years. And it is recommended annually for a system with a domestic garbage grinder.
So we can
So-
put in annually.
You could say annually, or every 2 years would be the frequency you could use, unless a garbage grinder is used, and then it should be annually.
I'm comfortable with annually.
Very good.
so EPG didn't say how frequently, but they said more frequently.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I
More
need Ed
frequently
Pesci or
than 3 years.
Pat Brennan or somebody to tell us how frequently is.
Well, I think once a year is safer.
Well,
They don't like it.
apparently the PFAS is somehow contained in the sludge.
Yeah.
And the thinking was that if you
Pump
pumped
it more
more
often.
frequently, then PFAS wouldn't get discharged into the groundwater
Right.
in these systems.
So I'm all for annually.
So we're saying that annually is better. for
Annually is
this,
better, yeah.
To catch whatever.
So can we put annually in there, Bob?
I'll put a more frequent annual pumping.
Yes.
All right, I put that in 14. Let me just find the other one.
There's nothing in there in the provisional use authority for the nitro system about pumping, because of course it's not having to do with the septic tank, it's post-septic tank treatment. There's nothing else online that I could tell. EPA recommends pumping every 3 to 5 years, depending on use, of course. But I think annually fits the bill.
Thank you, I agree.
So,
Is that what's like page 25?
you know, the way, I mean, and you all have this decision, you've seen it before, and other than as we've amended it tonight, the appropriate way to vote on it is to deal with each section at a time. So, we've talked about, in your last meeting, how to do with the waivers, so I don't think you need to
We
talk
already
about the
did.
waivers again, but I do think that you should take votes on each section.
Okay.
And if you want to make any other changes, take your time, whatever time you need to do it, but you should vote on those.
So page 31, just as a cleanup, the members that are not in it or on it, just has to be cleaned up.
What?
So it says-
JJ and Steve
Steve.
shouldn't be on there.
They're on the back page there, number 31.
Yeah.
Just to have that
So
cleaned
delete
up.
Feeney and,
So,
Right. I just want to ask who's going to be voting.
Larry, Brian, Jean, and Heidi.
Oh, so 4 regularly. Okay.
Because Mac came on after.
Mac should not vote on this.
Right, I know.
I'll vote in my mind.
Yeah.
So the way to approach voting is literally to take it by section.
Right. Just vote each section.
So if you want to go in order, you can, but then you'd take an overall vote.
Right. We vote each section and then overall,
Vote has to be by a majority vote on a comprehensive
each
permit.
one.
Starting at the beginning.
Yeah, might as well start with one, Bob.
So the first two sections,
Andrew, can you go to the beginning?
well, the first three sections are the
Applicant. and public
are the
hearing.
description of the project,
Right.
the law that applies, and the jurisdictional elements. So the first one you really have to vote for is subsection 4, jurisdictional elements and findings.
Move to approve Section 4 jurisdictional elements/findings as amended.
Second. All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye. Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers abstain.
All right.
Okay, so the next section you'd have to deal with is the finding as it relates to project impacts. And that's subsection,
5,
section,
on page 6.
it's on page 9.
9.
The findings are related to density, traffic, stormwater management, earth removal impacts, wastewater impacts.
We skip this part.
The need for affordable housing, setback, suitability, and the waiver of only of those local rules and regulations set forth in the waiver section of the decision.
This is the section where all the
You spent
wastewater-
the most time on this. This is 9 through 13.
Page 9 through 13.
Correct.
Brian, go ahead.
Move to accept Section 6 findings, pages 9 through 13, as amended, as discussed and amended tonight.
Second. All in favor?
I'm a no.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye. Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers abstain.
Okay, so now you should skip over section 7, and, well, actually, maybe, is there 2 section 7s? Yeah, 7 is decision, let me just renumber this, conditions of approval are 8.
So affordable housing and marketing lottery.
Wait a second. Conditions of approval, it should be section 8.
Conditions for approval.
Affordable housing
Oh,
should be
that's,
9.
number 7 is conditions of approval.
So page 14.
Oh, you're saying it should be number 8?
Yeah, there's 2 number 8s, so let me fix this up
We'll have
for
to
you.
fix it.
Oh, 8. There's 2 sevens. Right?
Mhm.
So this should be 8. Affordable housing would be 9.
Site development conditions is 12, then 13 is, 13 are earth removal conditions, that's correct. 14 are additional conditions, 15 are miscellaneous legal, 16 are waivers. So you're basically, your conditions of approval extend from sections,
So the new conditions of approval is number 8.
8 through 16.
Brian, go ahead.
Starting on page 14. Conditions of approval, 8 through 16. Move to approve or accept as amended and discussed this evening.
Second?
Now, this is with the changes that we've made. They've
Yes,
pretty much
Yes.
allowed,
yes,
correct?
all the changes.
These are just approval conditions.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye. Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers abstain.
All right, so what's the next?
Okay,
one?
I do think you should just reaffirm your vote on the waivers, because even though you,
Okay.
that is section 16, so I think you should take a vote on the waivers.
Move to accept the waivers as written and, as proposed and written.
Second?
Now, these
All in
waivers,
favor?
this doesn't have to do with the septic system, right, with the wastewater disposal, getting a little turned around?
Correct.
Okay. Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Ryan Murphy, aye.
Heidi Cohen, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers abstain.
Okay, so now what you have to do back to is the decision portion, which I believe is section 7. Yes, and that's on page 13.
Move to accept the decision as written and amended this evening.
Second? All in favor?
Larry Keane, no.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Ryan Murphy, aye.
Heidi Cohen, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers abstain.
Okay, the only thing that will be attached to the decision after you endorse it will be the file inventory, which Nancy has created. That's a listing of every single thing that the board received and considered from the date that it opened the public hearing in December, including the original materials that were filed, all of the emails that came in, all of the questions that came in, all of the comments, the presentations, everything that came in, all your peer review letters, those are all contained in the file inventory, and that'll be attached as Exhibit A.
Okay,
You don't have to approve that. That's a list that Nancy created.
all right. So now that we have to approve the entire,
You've made, the last vote was to
Oh,
approve
with
with
the-
conditions.
that's right. All right, so we're done.
You're done on that. Now you have to file the decision before Friday.
Right. All right. Now we can open the meeting. So I'm going to do the ones we're going to extend first. So 2447
So we're done with
Craig,
this?
yeah. Craig Watson, 23 Grace Lane, is looking to continue to 813. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Cohen, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers aye.
Was I supposed to read that in? Is it new?
You have to read them in and then vote to
All right,
continue.
start over. The petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to construct a 24-foot by 24-foot two-story garage and addition and attached 16-foot by 20-foot one-story gym and a 14-foot by 18-foot living room addition in the property located at 23 Grace Lane, which is further identified on the assessor's map as being on parcel J040339 and is located in the R1 zoning district. Do I have a second to continue to 813?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Cohen, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers aye.
And then we have 2446A, Peter Bernardi. The petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to construct a 24-foot by 31-foot two garage addition on the property located at 139 Emery Street, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel H15-1205A and is located in the R3 zoning district. Looking to continue to 813. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Cohen, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers aye.
2450, David Fredini. Petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield
What?
Municipal Code.
That one's gonna be heard tonight.
What's that?
That one's gonna be heard tonight.
Oh.
Next one's continued.
Which, 2451?
Yes.
Okay. 2451, Robert Deedy. The petitioner is seeking a site plan approval in accordance with 305-1202 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to install an 8-foot by 8-foot by 6-foot pickup window on the north side of the building on the property located on 914 Webb Street and is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel 8070510 is located in the B1 zoning district. Move to 813. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Cohen, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers aye.
All right, so now we will start.
There's two more.
Two more?
The 2410.
Oh, 2410 Next Door Realty Trust, 870 Main Street, continued to 813. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Coney, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
2243A, Jeremy Robinson, 15 Hutchinson Road, continued to 813. Second, all in favor? Larry?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Coney, aye. Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
All right, so now we have 2448.
Brian, I'm back, by the way.
Okay, 24, well, then you're gonna have to do a roll call. Roll,
I have another executive session I have to attend to.
okay, go ahead.
So I given you my memo.
Yeah, I think I
The
have.
meetings tonight were pretty vanilla.
Yeah, I saw that.
Special permits.
All right. So, roll call, Larry.
Larry Keane here.
Brian Sullivan here.
Brian Murphy here.
Heidi Coney here. Jean Lee here.
Mac Brothers here.
All right, Seamus Kent. The petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to raise the existing single-family dwelling and construct a new 26-foot by 40-foot, 2.5-story dwelling on the property located at 177 Standish Street, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel K120513, is located in the R3 zoning district. Go ahead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for hearing this petition tonight for the special permit. I've been a resident of Marshfield for approximately 20 years. During that time, I've been living at 177 Standish Street, Marshfield. It's located in the Wrexham Beach area. Currently, what we're looking to do is replace or demolish the current dwelling, which is just about 1,000 square feet. It currently sits on cinder blocks. It's at about a 10 3/4 foot elevation, which is still below the flood zone. We are in the flood zone. What we're proposing to do is a new foundation. It should be about 13 feet. It's going to be concrete. We're going to have the breakaway panels in case there is any flooding. We're going to build a 40 by 26, 2.5-story dwelling. As it sits now, it is non-conforming. The new build will remain non-conforming, but we're not going to make it any more non-conforming than it currently is. And we're not looking to encroach on any of the setbacks on the neighboring properties. We are on a corner lot, and we have neighbors to the west on Newport and to the south on Standish Street.
Any questions from the board?
You got this down pat, huh? I'm good.
Very thorough.
Andrew, do you have anything to add other than your notes?
Nope, this is pretty straightforward, very good explanation.
Yeah.
We're on town sewer. We're going to remain on town sewer if that matters, but hopefully.
Thanks. Any questions from the audience? Seeing that there's none, move to close 2448 177 Standish Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Coney, aye. Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
I'm going to move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's request for a special permit, subject to the conditions. This project will require a compliance with the floodplain bylaw, demolition permit, a building permit, a certificate of occupancy, and a final as-built site plan, based on the finding that the applicant's proposal to raise the existing, did I get that right? Right, please?
Raise and reconstruct.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Raise the existing single-family dwelling and construct a new 26-foot by 40-foot, 2.5-story dwelling on the property located at 177 Standish Street, as shown on a plot plan showing 177 Standish Street, drawn by American. Who drew the plan, Andrew? I can't see.
John Keefe did the survey.
Who?
John Keefe did the survey.
All right, John Keefe surveying, and date, what's the date on it? Oh, it's clustered. This is all right.
June 4th, 2024.
June 4th, 2024. meets the special permit criteria in section 1012 of the bylaw. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye. Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck, yeah. All right, so. Christine Logan, 2449. Petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to construct a 16-foot by 27-foot front shed dormer on the property located on 23 Arkansas Street, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel L090516. It's located in the R3 zoning district. Go ahead.
I'm Christine, this is my husband, Jim.
Yeah, name and address for the record.
Okay. So we're just trying to add a dormer on the front of our Cape Cod style house to move my mother in. And that's it. It's my husband and I and our 5 kids and a little extra room.
Straightforward.
You wanted more.
And/or everything's good here other than your notes?
Yep, everything's good. It's in a flood zone. They're gonna be not disturbing the ground at all. It's just an addition on here. I would recommend that we sit down and meet and go over the project and some of the other stuff before we go forward, but we can do that sometime in the coming weeks.
Okay. All right, move to close 2440. Oh, sorry, any comments from the audience?
You were the
Board
one that
members?
sent in the email saying you wanted to come on tonight, right?
Yeah?
Yeah. I'd just like to say, I don't think anybody on the board minds staying. at
Oh,
all.
thank
We-
Thank you. So move to close 2449 Christine Logan, 23 Arkansas Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye. Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
I move that the board vote. Oh, I move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's request for the special permit, subject to the conditions. This project will require a building permit and a certificate of occupancy, based on the finding that the applicants proposed to construct a 16-foot by 27-foot front shed dormer on the property located at 23 Arkansas Street, as shown on a mortgage inspection plan drawn by Colonial Land Surveying Company Incorporated, drawn by Paul T. Grover, PLS, dated August 31st, 1999, and architectural renderings from LFH Drafting, no stamp, dated May 1st, 2024, 1 page, and June 10th, 2024, 2 pages. Meets the special permit criteria of the section 1012 of the bylaw. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Oh, Heidi Conway, aye. Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Thank you.
So just make sure you meet with Andrew.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thanks, good luck.
So 2450 David Safradini. Petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to raise, elevate the existing approximately 50.5 foot by 30.6 foot dwelling approximately 8 feet on the improved cinder block foundation on the same footprint on a property located at 10 Donito Drive, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel L091004, located in the R3 zoning district. Name and address for the record?
Oh, no, I just want to...
No, name and address for the record.
David Safradini, 10 Donetto Drive.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'd just like to get my house up out of the flood zone. Going to use, to improve the cinder block foundation to bring it up out of the flood zone. No other alterations will be made to the property.
I have never heard of this road, ever.
Any questions from the board?
Andrew, this is a pre-existing non-conforming structure?
That's correct. It is. They're not going to change the footprint really at all. It's just going to add more layers of cinder block to the existing cinder block foundation, make it compatible with all the floodplain regulations, The only thing that he'll have to extend really will be the stairs coming down off of the decks. You know, he's going to want to maintain the decks. Obviously, they're going to go from ground level to up higher, but that would really be the only change, I would say.
I really wish that our bylaw would allow you to make this call, rather than have the applicant have to come to us, because to me, it's a slam dunk.
Agreed.
Any questions from the audience? Any other board members? Seeing that there's none, I move to close 2350 10 Donito Road Drive. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Ryan Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
I move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's request for a special permit, subject to the conditions. This project will require compliance with the floodplain bylaw and a building permit, a certified as-built site plan, and a certificate of occupancy. Based on the finding that the applicant's proposal to raise and elevate the existing approximately 50.5 by 30.6 foot dwelling, approximately 8 feet, on an improved cinder block foundation on the same footprint on the property located on 10 Donito Drive, shown on a building location plan dated May 4th, 1994, by Thomas J. Sullivan, PLS, Millbrook Survey, meets special permit criteria of section 1012 of the bylaw. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Ryan Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Is that it? Oh, no, Dee Dee, right?
No, he's going to the 13th.
Oh, he's going to,
Mr. Deedy?
Now we just go down to, second, Amy, and continue to.
the Claudine,
Claudius.
what's that?
Mr. Keel for 97 Foster.
Okay.
So we already
24,
read it in.
what's that? I already read it in, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Name and address for the record?
97 Foster Avenue, and my name is Małgorzata Kieł. I'm Claudius' Kieł wife.
Okay. Go ahead.
I have a note. So the mudroom needs to be rebuilt, and it has not been properly built before. So it will look very similar to the current one, but slightly bigger. And it's our main entrance, and we want to make sure that it's safe and functional. Just needs to be rebuilt. It is very tiny, and it will stay very small, but slightly bigger.
Okay.
That's it. And the mudroom is not heated.
In the what?
And it's not heated.
It's not.
Not heated, and it will stay not heated. And my husband, I think he sent all of the plans, right?
Okay.
Right.
So
Any questions?
when I saw this, I see the existing mudroom, which is about half the size of the plan, but there is a structure of some sort that still extends off the mudroom, between the mudroom and the fence. So it looks like you're just taking over that existing structure, which was an outside arbor or something. So you're keeping the same line roughly to where that arbor is between the house and the fence.
Andrew, want to help with this?
It's a weird little. So that's the mudroom itself, and then that white line at the bottom of it is like looks like an arbor to me, like a grape arbor.
So do you have any questions with this, Andrew?
No.
No. Andrew?
So my husband knows everything about this, so I.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just asking the building commissioner if he has any questions.
They're already non-conforming on that side, so it's like an extension of that non-conformity, but they are doubling the size of it. That was the only really concern there.
Okay. So Any other questions?
I have none.
Yeah. I'm fine.
Move to close 24, 38, 97 Foster Ave. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye. Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Winging it through here. I got no answer. So I move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's request for a special permit, subject to the conditions. This project will require a compliance with the floodplain bylaw, a building permit, a certificate of occupancy, and a final as-built site plan. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Based on the finding that the applicant's proposal to raise, nope, wrong words. Based on the applicant's proposal to construct an 8x8 mudroom on the property located at 97 Foster Avenue. Did we have a plan that stated anything on there, Andrew?
It's a hand-drawn plan over something that was from 1971.
1971, and the other plan is just
Did we need to update that?
It was hand-drawn
Hand-drawn.
by the owner.
okay. In accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code, the 8x8 mudroom. On those plans, do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye. Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Grover? All right, you're all set.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Is there anyone else?
The only thing is, there's nothing else on the agenda. However, Bob wanted me to ask you guys to stay and sign, actually like 10 minutes to print the Robert Crossing decision. So you
Sure.
guys can sign them.
Yeah, that's fine.
We need to handle the other business.
Oh, other business? What's in there?
Well,
Oh,
I
it's only
move that
adjournment.
we take a break.
Yeah, 5-minute, 10-minute break. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye. Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
You're all set.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
She's so cute.
I will be back.
Calling it back to order. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye. Jean Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
All right, so we're gonna sign the decision.
No, actually, there's 3, sign 3.
Oh, yeah.
Can I use this pen?
You need blue.
Is it, it's better to do it.
It's blue.
Oh, that's a marker pen.
This is a
It's
mark.
just-
Well, it's a different pen.
Okay.
Use the back.
It's like buying a house.
Right?
No, yeah. That was the pen. I have never heard of that road, but
Dinero?
I've never, ever heard
Is
of
that
it.
how you
It was
pronounce it?
also called Grant Road.
That's
Never heard
awful.
of that
It's,
either. Have you?
It's,
awful.
I
Yeah,
think
I
it's a
heard
paper
that.
street.
I think it's
Yeah.
down near me.
No, it's
Down
off
there
of,
Not far,
off
yeah.
of Roosevelt?
I know, because I drove by it.
Yeah.
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 Never heard of it.
There's one house on
But
it.
it's like-
So crazy.
I think there's like one house.
There's one house on it.
I can't believe that in all these years I've never heard of that.
All,
No, they're all the same. It
It's
doesn't
all the
matter.
same.
This is-
But Waze found it.
but,
This is done. She's done.
just 3 of them.
This is
Oh.
done. This is done. Finally got that done.
Did you put it down as the
She's
4-to-1
done.
vote? Did you get the 4-to-1 vote?
This is all done.
Because Larry voted against it.
I think it's one thing.
No, you maybe voted against the whole
Overall,
project.
I mean, I think I did get that.
So it doesn't change here, right?
No.
Right.
I've got a blue pen.
Use your blue pen
Okay,
back.
use that pen? I follow directions. You don't. Sometimes.
He's like Jim Smart Mouth. Don't be fresh.
I like to
And now
pretend I
we'll send you
followed
guys
her.
a final copy.
Each, yeah. Well,
That pen skips. Do it over.
My work here is done.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for
Thank
keeping
you.
track of all of that. No, but I mean, with
wasn't saying that.
with
I was
this
just
whole
saying-
project,
saying
no,
you
I really appreciate you keeping
Motion
track of
to
all of
adjourn?
that.
No, other business.
all in favor? What?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Sullivan,
One
aye?
other business?
What is?
Oh, it says here on the agenda, other business.
There's a move to
We already
adjourn.
did, the Hutchins.
Yeah, that was continued.
I continued that to
Yeah, at the
8:13.
beginning. 8:13.
Oh, agenda, that's.
Already did that.
There are 3 votes in favor of the motion to adjourn.
Adjourn, continue.
Oh, sorry. Conway, aye. I'm like,
Jean
what?
Lee, aye.
Mac Brothers, aye.
Grover,
I missed that.
I
thank you.